I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and this is I-24 News. It is day 191 of the Israel-Hamas war, and Israelis are reeling after a major attack from Iran. On Saturday night, just last night, Iran launched a massive wave of missiles and attack drones at Israel from its own territory, in the first ever direct attack on Israeli territory by the Islamic Republic. Well, Israeli officials say that Iran fired over 300 projectiles at Israel, including a total of 185 drones. This is according to the New York Times, 110 surface-to-surface missiles, and 36 cruise missiles. Now, most came from Iran, although a small portion were launched from Iraq and Yemen. And Hebrew media reports that not one drone or missile actually managed to infiltrate Israeli airspace, and that the U.S., UK, and Jordan helped take down many of these drones. Now, despite this, 12 people were evacuated to the hospital with injuries, including a 7-year-old girl from Arad in southern Israel who was seriously wounded by missile shrapnel. She was sent to the operation room, and she is now in the pediatric intensive care unit. 8 people were also lightly wounded from shrapnel or while reaching shelter. Well, the Israeli Home Front Command says that even though the initial major scare is over, the campaign still has not ended, and that locals must be vigilant and attentive to the IDF Home Front Command instructions. School remains canceled nationwide, along with gatherings of more than 1,000 people, and workplaces are allowed to remain open as normal as long as there is access to a bomb shelter. These rules are going to remain in effect until 11 p.m. on Monday, and Israeli airspace has already reopened to landings and takeoffs after 7 hours of closure. Let's take a look at what our IDF spokesperson Hagari had to say about the latest news.
בוקר טוב. אמש איראן פתחה במתקפה נגד ישראל ושיגרה יותר מ-300 איומים מסוגים שונים. האיום האיראני פגש את העליונות האווירית והטכנולוגית של צה"ל
superiority and the technology of the IDF together with the coalition who thwarted the vast majority of the threats. We thwarted 99% of the threats launched towards the state of Israel. This is a strategic achievement, an important one. Out of 170 UAVs, 0 have entered Israeli territory. Dozens were thwarted by Israeli fighter jets, our aerial defense system, and jets of our partners. Out of 130 cruise missiles, 0 have penetrated Israeli territory. 25 were thwarted by Israeli fighter jets out of our borders. Out of over 120 ballistic missiles on a number entered Israeli territory, and the rest were thwarted. They've hit the Nevatim air base and caused only light damage to infrastructure. As you can see now, the base is operating and continues its missions. In the image, you can see the landing route at the base. Iran thought it would be able to paralyze the base and hurt Israel's aerial abilities, but it failed. Israeli fighter jets continue to fly out of the base for missions on defense and offense, including the F-35 planes who are returning from the defense mission. In addition to the launches from Iran, there were a number of launches out of Iraq, Yemen. None of them have penetrated Israeli territory. In recent hours, dozens of rockets were fired from Lebanon towards Israel's north. There are no injuries. Fighter jets have struck Hezbollah targets across Lebanon, including Redwan force targets, while many other planes continue the defensive mission. In the past 6 months, we are operating with close cooperation with our partners headed by CENTCOM and the militaries of Britain, France, and other countries that have operated tonight. This cooperation has always been tight, but tonight it came into expression in an extraordinary manner, and with excellence performance of the Air Force and the intelligence headed by the Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, the thwarting abilities of the aerial defense systems and the fighter jets have proven extraordinary professionalism and military and technology superiority. Thanks to all of these, the Iranian attack has been thwarted. To our regret, a 10-year-old girl was seriously wounded by shrapnel. We wish her a speedy recovery. Other than her, as we understand, there are no other injuries. This event is not over yet. We are still ready for developments. The instructions of the Home Front Command remain as they were. We must not conduct any educational systems regarding any changes. We will update you immediately with transparency and with responsibility, as we did before. Throughout the night, the cooperation of the public is remarkable. We must continue to do so without panic. We will do everything that is possible in order for the public to receive the information at the fast and most accurate manner. We have conducted a situational assessment. The IDF Chief of Staff has approved working plans. Iran has executed a very extreme move tonight, drawing the Middle East for an escalation. We will do whatever is needed in order to defend the people of Israel. Thanks to, in addition to the developments tonight, we do not forget for one moment the 133 hostages being held in Gaza. We will continue to do everything in order to return them home as quickly as possible.
איראן הצליחה הלילה להכניס את מדינת ישראל לחרדה ומקלטים.
So what comes next?
להגיב על המתקפה
האיראנית.
I think that
So what comes next? Well, U.S. President Joe Biden is going to be meeting with G7 leaders on Sunday to coordinate a, quote, united diplomatic response to Iran's brazen attack. Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning, where he reaffirmed America's ironclad commitment to the security of Israel. Well, we're also hearing reports that the U.S. president told Netanyahu that the U.S. is not going to aid any Israeli counterattack on Iran. And this also comes amid reported American fear that Israel could be irresponsible in its response and fail to update the United States as to how it plans to attack. But for now, the Israeli prime minister has posted a short message on X saying just the following: we intercepted, we blocked, and together we will win. Joining us now is our senior U.S. correspondent in New York, Mike Wagenheim. So, Mike, President Biden spoke overnight with Netanyahu. He says support to Israel's ironclad, but like I just mentioned, we're seeing multiple reports as to fears about how Israel could respond and whether or not the United States would continue to support Israel in that case. What can you tell us about that?
I mean, it's really not a huge surprise, although it might be shocking to read it in print. Not a huge surprise that President Biden would tell Prime Minister Netanyahu that the United States will not support any further retaliation here from Israel. It's Biden and his administration that's been trying to tamp down on regional tensions, try to go the diplomatic route, as Biden said in a statement late tonight, that they'll meet with G7 leaders tomorrow to try to find a diplomatic avenue forward here. And so the last message he wants to try to send here is that it's a green light on behalf of Washington for Netanyahu and Israel to carry out further retaliatory attacks here against Iran. So it's not as if, as we saw tonight with the United States, the UK, France, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. I mean, there's a huge storyline here to talk about, that Israel was not alone in defending itself against Iran. But it's different defending yourself than going on the attack once again. And I think Biden is trying to separate those two dimensions as clearly as he can.
Now, will this attack push the House of Representatives to perhaps bring the aid package to a vote?
I think there's no doubt whatsoever. I mean, there was pressure there to begin with, but with so many other domestic political considerations, it kind of fell off the map for a while. There's been an effort for a what's called a discharge petition, which essentially would force a House vote if it got the majority of House members to sign on to it, but not very many Republicans were willing to buck House leadership to do so. But now we're seeing from all angles, except for the far left, from all angles, pressure now on Speaker Mike Johnson to bring this up for a vote, not only from Senate leadership, which wants him to essentially adopt the Senate-passed bill for Israel and Ukraine aid, but we're seeing it now from both sides of the House, from pro-Israel stalwarts on the Democratic side to leadership on the Republican side. I think it's going to come up in one form or fashion. Speaker Mike Johnson now has a balancing act here. Is he going to bring up an Israel-only aid bill? Will he bring up the larger foreign aid package involving Ukraine and Taiwan aid in addition to Israel? Does he put it through a certain rules process so it's more palatable to maybe some of the hardliners in his caucus? That's what needs to be decided more than anything. But I think now the pressure is on here to bring it up in one form or fashion this week. And we already heard House Majority Leader Steve Scalise say that the House is rearranging their entire calendar this coming week, moving more message-laden items off the table in favor of now bringing up pro-Israel and anti-Iran legislation and resolutions.
Now, we understand that the UN Security Council is meant to convene at around 4 p.m. this evening, U.S. time. What can you tell us about what we can expect out of this meeting, if anything?
Yeah, it's confirmed. 4 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Israel time. The UN Security Council will hold an emergency, a rare Sunday session here to discuss Iran's attacks. This meeting was called for by Israeli ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, and approved by the president of the council this month, Maltese Ambassador Vanessa Fraser. I think more than anything, the council will try to figure out a way, as Joe Biden has tried to do here, to make sure this doesn't explode more into a regional war. That's been the fear of the council throughout, the post-October 7th process, is how do we keep this to as little violence as possible. We've seen Hezbollah get involved, the Houthis. It's obviously grown now with Iran directly involved, launching attacks from its own soil. I think the Security Council here, the big discussion is going to be how do we start extinguishing these fires before it turns into something completely uncontrollable.